You ever open an envelope and feel like you just got slapped in the face? That was me last month. My name is Brooke, I'm 35, and I work in international field logistics for a medical nonprofit. I've spent most of the last 10 years bouncing between refugee clinics, disaster zones, and temporary relief camps. I'm not rich, but I've built a life. A meaningful one. Quiet, maybe, but real. So when I got a pale gold envelope in the mail with elegant cursive that read, "You're invited," my heart stopped for a second. Not because I was excited, but because it was the first thing I'd received from my father in over 3 years. And then I saw it. Wedding of Tyler Matthews and Danielle Harper venue, Matthews Family Farm, Ashland, Ohio. Kindly RSVP by... I stared at the RSVP card for a long minute. Nowhere on it was my name. It was addressed to the Matthews family, not Brooke. No mention of big sister, no personal note, not even a scribbled, "Hope you can make it" from Tyler, my own brother. Worse, this wasn't just any venue. This wedding was being held at my grandparents' old farmhouse, the place I grew up, the same house I helped repaint during summers, the barn I used to sneak into and cry when Dad remarried, the same land I'd sent money for, my money, to help repair the dam foundation when they thought about selling it off. And now they were hosting a wedding there. A wedding I wasn't even properly invited to. I called my father, straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I told myself, it's just a formality. Maybe it was a mass invite. Maybe Tyler didn't know how it was printed. Maybe I'm making it bigger than it is. But the pit in my stomach said otherwise. A week later, I was back in Ohio. I hadn't been home in nearly 4 years. The air smelled the same. Cornfield dust, wet soil, faint pine sap. The kind of smells that take you back whether you want to go or not. As I pulled into the long gravel driveway, my headlights hit something that made my hands freeze on the wheel. There was a banner strung up across the barn doors. "Welcome to the future Harper Matthews home." Home. I parked and sat in the car for a bit, trying to breathe. This land, this was supposed to be a neutral place. A family place, not a hand-me-down prize. I stepped out into the early evening light. Wedding prep was in full swing. Fairy lights hung from the trees, mason jars on tables, white chairs stacked neatly. And there, across the porch, I saw her, my stepmother Trish, directing a rental crew with that clipped tone she always used when pretending to be someone she wasn't. She saw me. Her smile flickered. "Oh, Brooke, you came." You came, not "so glad you're here," not "we've missed you." Just a statement. Like an obligation. "Where should I put my things?" I asked. "Is the guest room still?" She interrupted without looking me in the eye. "Oh, South Danielle's bridal party is using the guest rooms. We figured you'd be more comfortable at the inn just down the road." I blinked. "You booked me a hotel?" "Well, not booked per se, but they've got plenty of rooms." I didn't say anything. My childhood bedroom was 20 feet from where I stood. The same one with the bay window. The built-in bookshelves Dad and I built before he met her. But now it had frilly curtains and a nameplate on the door. Bride's dressing room. Inside, I could see it. My old bookshelf, painted over in white. "Brooke, I hope this isn't going to be uncomfortable," Trish said suddenly, softer now. "This weekend is really important to the family." To the family, as if I weren't a part of that. I turned away before she could see the tears building behind my eyes. I walked around the side of the barn toward the tool shed, just to clear my head. And that's when I saw something that stopped me cold. A man in overalls, older, grayer, was hammering something into the ground near the path. He looked up. "Brooke?" "Mr. Harlan?" He used to be our groundskeeper. I hadn't seen him since I was 20. He gave a gentle smile, then glanced toward the house. "Did they ever tell you? When the roof nearly collapsed 5 years back, it was your donation that saved this place. You know that, right?" I shook my head. Number I didn't. He nodded solemnly. They don't talk about it, but I remember I was there. And just like that, a dam cracked inside me. All those years, all that effort, and not even a thank you. Not even my name on the guest room door. I looked back at the farmhouse, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a daughter. I felt like a ghost. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in a motel bed with stiff sheets and a buzzing fridge 3 feet from my head. The inn Trish had not quite booked for me was half an hour from the farm. I stared at the ceiling tiles like they owed me an explanation. I kept replaying Mr. Harlan's words. It was your donation that saved this place. They didn't even tell me. Not once. I wired over $12,000 5 years ago when my dad called in a panic about the farmhouse roof. Said he didn't want to lose the last thing holding the family together. He didn't say a damn word about it after that. Not thank you. Not even it's fixed. I guess the plan was never to include me in anything that came after. The next morning, I drove back to the property early. I told myself I just wanted to walk the grounds before the rehearsal chaos started. Maybe say hi to Tyler if I caught him alone. Try to salvage something. The sun was still rising when I got there. Mist curled off the grass like breath. I stepped quietly around the side fence and made my way to the back porch, where the old bench still sat under the willow tree. That's where I saw my dad, standing alone, sipping coffee. For a moment, he looked just like he did when I was 12. Hair a little messy, robe hanging open, slippers half on. For a moment, I forgot the years. I called out softly, "Morning." He turned a little startled. "Brooke?" "I figured I'd stop by before things got busy," I said, stepping closer. "I wanted to talk." He gave a short nod and set his cup down. Then he said, "You shouldn't take things so personally, about the guest room." That hit harder than I expected. "I grew up in that room," I said, "and now it's Danielle's dressing room. The bookshelves you built with me, painted over. My name's not in the photo slideshow, not on the RSVP, not even on the fridge." He rubbed his face. "It's Tyler's day, honey. We wanted to keep the focus on him." "No," I said, voice shaking. "You wanted to erase me." He flinched slightly, but he didn't deny it. He said something about how Trish wanted a clean narrative, how Tyler didn't want tension, how some people just don't fit into every moment. Then he added with a shrug, "You've been gone a long time, Brooke. You live in South America or somewhere. You never came back." "I never came back," I repeated, "because every time I tried, you made it clear there was no place for me." He looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. Instead, he picked up his coffee and walked back inside without another word. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the closed screen door. Then I sat on the bench and cried for the first time in years. Not loud sobbing, just quiet, breathless grief. The kind that comes from finally accepting something you didn't want to believe. I thought that would be the worst part of my day. I was wrong. Later that afternoon, I wandered into the main barn to get out of the heat. The wedding planner was inside, setting up tables and place cards. Curious, I scanned the seating chart. My name wasn't on it. Not at the family table. Not at the back. Not anywhere. I approached the planner. "Excuse me. Sorry, I'm Brooke. The groom's sister." She blinked. "Sister?" "Yeah, older sister. I flew in from Ecuador." "Oh." She looked embarrassed. I just set the chart based on the list I was given. Maybe you're with the vendors? Or press?" "Vendors." Press, I backed away, heart pounding. Then I caught sight of the family tribute wall, a collage of printed photos hung across burlap and twine. Childhood photos of Tyler, their family vacations, holidays, the rebuild the farm summer. My photo? Cut out. Literally. Just a weird empty space where my face should have been. I stared at it in stunned silence. Then I heard voices behind me. "She showed up?" It was Trish. I thought she wasn't coming. "She's probably looking for attention," said Danielle, her voice dripping with amusement. We didn't even include her in the ceremony. Like, how do you invite yourself to a wedding you weren't part of? They were laughing. I stepped away before they saw me. My hands were shaking, breath shallow. I found a quiet corner behind the caterer's van and tried to ground myself. And then my phone buzzed. A message from an old email address I hadn't seen in years. From Amy Wallace. Subject: You don't know me, but we need to talk. Amy Wallace, my late mother's best friend, a woman I hadn't spoken to since the funeral. I opened the message. Her first line: There are things you were never told about your mom's will, and you need to know them before tomorrow. That email stayed open on my screen for a long time. I kept rereading the same line like it would change somehow. There are things you were never told about your mom's will. It felt like the ground beneath me cracked open again. I hadn't heard anything about a will after my mom died. I was 21, fresh out of undergrad. I remember standing at the funeral like a ghost while Dad stood next to Trish and introduced her to distant relatives like she was always part of the picture. I called the number in Amy's signature. She picked up on the first ring. "Brooke," she said, "I've been waiting for this day." "What are you talking about?" I asked, barely holding my voice steady. Amy didn't waste time. "Your mom left something for you. She made me promise not to say anything until you turned 35, unless you asked me directly before that. I turned 35 last week." "I know," she said, "and I knew you'd be home." Then she added, "It's about the farmhouse." I stopped breathing. "She put it in writing," Amy continued. "Her share of that property, it was supposed to go to you, not your dad, not Trish, just you." I sank down onto the motel bed. "But she died over a decade ago. That can't hold up now. He's owned it ever since." "He claimed ownership, but she never removed your name from the title transfer papers she filed. He never finalized them. They're in my safe." I was shaking. "Are you saying I legally own part of that land?" "I'm saying you might own all of it." I couldn't even process what she meant. My heart pounded so loud I barely heard her finish. She agreed to meet me in town that evening to hand over the documents. I hung up and just sat there staring at my phone like it was made of fire. I had spent years believing I didn't belong anywhere. And now, suddenly, I might own the very place they were using to celebrate a future I wasn't part of. But what really gutted me was this. They knew, or at least he did. My dad had to have seen the papers, had to know that my mother left something just for me. And still, he let Trish repaint the walls. Still let them hang that "Welcome Home Danielle" sign. Still let my name get cut out of every memory. It was never about forgetting. It was about rewriting. By the time I drove back to the farm, rehearsal dinner was in full swing. People milled around with wine glasses and polite fake laughter. I slipped into the barn quietly and stood in the back, hidden between crates of decorations and sound equipment. That's when I saw the family tribute video starting up on the big projector screen. Photos of Tyler as a kid. Him with Dad. Trish holding his high school diploma. Danielle crying when he proposed. Music swelled, the lights dimmed, and suddenly the screen flashed a big cursive title. "To the ones who raised us." And I just stood there, waiting. No photo of Mom. Not one. Not even the black and white one I remember from her desk. Her in that summer dress holding Tyler and me on each hip. Gone. I felt something inside me go cold. Not anger. Not even sadness anymore. It was something else. Something still. Like ice before it cracks. I walked out before the applause started. I couldn't take it. I needed air. I needed out. But just as I rounded the corner past the catering tent, I heard voices again. "She's still here? Trish? I thought she'd leave after we made her sleep at the motel." Then Tyler's voice. "It's fine. She won't cause a scene. She never does. That's her thing. Quiet little Brooke, always taking the high road." I stopped. He laughed. She's probably too embarrassed to realize we didn't even assign her a seat. I don't know what part broke more, hearing my brother say that, or realizing how much truth there was in it. I had always stayed quiet, always swallowed it, always made space for them to feel comfortable. Well, I disappeared. Not anymore. I turned and walked straight back into the barn, past the guests, past the fake smiles, straight to the mic on stage. I grabbed it before anyone could stop me. The speakers screeched and heads turned. Tyler froze mid-sip. Trish's smile dropped like a curtain. I took a deep breath. Hi, I'm Brooke Matthews. You might have seen me walking around and thought I was part of the catering staff, or maybe a forgotten cousin. A few polite chuckles, nervous ones. But I'm actually the groom's sister. Not that you'd know from the video, or the seating chart, or the photos. Gasps. My mom, our mom, wasn't in that slideshow. But she should have been, because she raised us, me and Tyler, by herself, until she couldn't anymore. Silence. And when she passed, she left me something you all might want to hear about before tomorrow. My dad started to rise. So did Trish. I turned, looked them square in the eyes, and said, "Because I have the deed to this land, and it's got my name on it." For half a second, no one moved. It was like I'd cracked glass in a church. Then came the whispers, a few stunned gasps. One wine glass hit the floor and shattered near the buffet table. My father stood up first, red-faced, marching down the aisle of folding chairs like he still had control over the room. Trish was right behind him, hissing my name like she could somehow whisper away what I'd just said. I didn't flinch. I kept my hands on the mic, heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear the first half of what he was saying. "Brooke, this is not the place. We can discuss this in private." "Oh, now you want to talk?" I said, turning to him, my voice steady. "When you cut me out of everything, you didn't seem to mind doing that in public." A few people in the crowd murmured. A couple of Tyler's college buddies looked down awkwardly at their drinks. Even the wedding planner froze mid-step, holding a clipboard like a shield. "Let me finish," I said, raising my voice slightly. "You all saw the tribute video. Not a single photo of my mom. Not a word about her. And now you know why. Because acknowledging her means acknowledging what she left behind. And that includes me." I looked out at the crowd. This land was part hers. She left her stake to me. The papers were never finalized. And Amy Wallace, who some of you might remember, has the proof. That was when Trish lost it. "She's lying," she snapped. "This is manipulation. Brooke's just bitter she was never part of this family." I stared at her for a long second. Then I smiled. "You're right," I said. "I wasn't part of your family, but I was part of hers. And she made damn sure I wouldn't be forgotten, even if the rest of you tried to erase her." "Brooke," Tyler said, standing now. "This isn't fair. This is my wedding." I looked at him, and for a moment my chest tightened. He used to call me his hero when we were kids. I once worked overnight shifts at a bookstore in college to send him money for his textbooks. And now he couldn't even say my name in a speech. "I didn't plan on this," I said, my voice dropping. But when you cut someone out long enough, eventually they stop waiting for the invitation and just show up. At that point, Dad tried to take the mic from me. That's when I stepped back and pulled out the envelope Amy gave me. Not a copy, not a letter. The original documents, notarized, signed, and stamped. I held them up. "I've already filed these with a real estate attorney. The wedding can go on. But just so we're clear, this land belongs to me now. Every square foot of it." Trish's face went pale. My dad looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. But the real moment? The real twist? It came from the back of the barn. A calm voice, soft but loud enough to cut the tension, spoke. "She's not lying." Everyone turned. Amy Wallace stepped forward, holding her own folder in hand. Gray hair tied back, blouse tucked neatly, eyes that didn't flinch. "I was there when her mother signed everything," she said. "And I warned you, Mark." She looked directly at my father. Not to pretend those papers didn't exist. You made your choice. And now she's making hers. The silence was deafening. Then someone clapped. One slow, deliberate clap, then another. It was Grandpa David, my mom's father, standing in the far back row. I hadn't even seen him arrive. I hadn't spoken to him since I was a teenager. He looked straight at me and said, "Your mother would have been proud, Brooke." I don't remember what happened after that. People scattered. The band stopped playing. Tyler sat down and buried his face in his hands. Trish stormed out the side door, dragging my dad behind her like a dog on a leash. But I stood still. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I was done being erased. And I had just taken back the pen. The morning after the rehearsal chaos, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my dad, 2 texts from Tyler, and 1 message from a number I didn't recognize. The first line read, "Brooke, you need to call us before you do something drastic." Too late. That same morning, I walked into the office of my attorney, handed him the documents Amy gave me, and officially filed a cease and desist to stop the wedding from being held on my property. Not out of spite, out of principle. And because, for once, I wasn't going to let them bulldoze over me with their timelines and half-assed apologies. I gave them 2 options. 1, move the wedding elsewhere. 2, sit down and have a real conversation, with the paperwork and history on the table. They chose neither. Instead, Trish tried to bluff her way through it. Had the audacity to post on Facebook that last-minute logistical issues forced the family to relocate the wedding venue. As if a thunderstorm had shown up instead of the consequences of their own behavior. But here's the twist. The story spread. Turns out, when you cut your own daughter out of your life, whitewash her childhood bedroom for bridal portraits, and then try to host a fake perfect wedding on land you don't even legally own. People talk. Vendors pulled out. A few guests posted vague comments like, "Maybe treat people like they matter before trying to play house." A bridesmaid, Danielle's college friend, DM'd me and said she dropped out after finding out the real story. By the time I drove back to the farmhouse a week later, the place was dead quiet. Wedding chairs still stacked, wilting flowers left on the porch, balloons half deflated and bobbing sadly in the wind. And on the front door, a printed notice from my attorney. Trespassing on private property is a violation of Ohio Code 2911.21. This land is under new management. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I just stepped inside. The house felt colder than I remembered. Not in temperature, just in memory. But I didn't cry this time. I walked upstairs into the old bedroom that had been repainted for Danielle. The bookshelves were still there. So was the bay window. The fake bridal dressing table had been cleared out. I opened a box I'd left years ago in the attic. Inside, my mother's scarf, a photograph of us at the state fair, and a letter I'd written her after she passed but never mailed. I sat down and read it aloud. To no one. To everyone. That night, I invited Amy and Grandpa David to the farmhouse for dinner. We opened a bottle of wine Mom used to love. We laughed. We cried. And we made plans, real ones, to turn the farmhouse into a summer retreat for medical volunteers. Something with purpose. Something that mattered. As for my father, he hasn't spoken to me since. According to Amy, after the truth came out, he quietly stepped down from the town planning board, citing personal stress. Trish lost a chunk of her real estate clients after her wedding stunt went semi-viral in our circle. And Tyler? He and Danielle married 2 months later in a courthouse. No guests, no speeches, no slideshow. And me? I didn't get revenge. I got my voice back. For a long time, I thought silence was strength. That swallowing pain made me noble. Now I know. Speaking your truth doesn't make you dramatic. It makes you free. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Family isn't built on names or blood. It's built on who shows up when no one's looking, who defends you when no one's clapping, and who keeps your name alive even after you're gone. If you've ever felt erased, replaced, or just invisible, you're not alone. Tell me your story in the comments. And if this resonated with you, feel free to stick around. I've got more stories where this one came from. Let's keep this space honest. Let's keep it real. We deserve that much.